Creepy Valentine. Kimberly loved her 9-to-5 job in banking, as everything was predictable. There were different departments, and each had its own groups. Some intermingled during their lunch breaks, and some liked just to sit at their desk. Kimberly was like that, a woman in her mid-20s who did her job sincerely. She had her plans to save some money and later on do something with her life. Her future was bright, and she was very much in love with her boyfriend, Jacob. Every day she would come into the office excited to work, and her positive attitude was admired. There were some people in the office who would be attracted to her, and one of those people was Robert. He was an internal mailman in the investment bank. His job was to hand out the mail, and yet he wouldn't shy away to give compliments to people in the office, especially women. Everybody knew he was over-friendly. It meant some people didn't like Robert that much. "Can you not stare at me? You're such a creep," Beth, one of Kimberly's colleagues, said to him. "Why do you have to talk to him like that?" Kimberly said. "He's just doing his job." But Kimberly was unaware that Robert had been staring at Beth, who had become a bit of an obsession for him. Kimberly didn't like the way Beth had spoken. She could see how the remarks had made Robert uncomfortable. She reckoned that he was in his early 50s. Robert looked quite young from the perception of his body. When it came to his face, it was quite withered but seemed mature. Whenever he opened his mouth, Kimberly knew that he still had to learn some social skills. It came with showing support when somebody was failing at it. Having that in mind, she spoke to him when he was coming to drop a letter off near her desk. "You got a minute?" she asked. Robert was amazed to hear that Kimberly had to say. "Yes," he said. "Whatever Beth said yesterday, don't take that seriously, okay? She is a dummy, I know," interrupted Robert. "I can't believe someone in this office can be this lovely, by the way. I love everybody regardless, but you, Kimberly, there's something about you. There is." "I get it," she said, pausing him. "And thank you for the letter. Now, I have to get back to work." He nodded as he passed by. His glance kept falling on her. The next few days, it started to become common. Even some people began to notice that Robert was now literally staring at Kimberly, but she remained so busy in her work that whenever Robert would find an excuse to come to her, she would be kind to him. She wouldn't know Robert was falling deeper and deeper in love. As it was the end of December, a Christmas party was coming nearby. Who was the most excited? It was Robert the mailman. During the party, he was dressed nicely. Everyone wondered how he afforded such a nice suit. But since the party started, he couldn't take his eyes off Kimberly. And in the midst of the party, when people began to dance, it was Robert who had conjured up the audacity to ask her, "Will you dance with me?" She had champagne in her hand while she was standing with her friends. "You look great, Robert, but I have to say no." After hearing Kimberly's reply, Robert was again embarrassed because everyone was looking at him. Some were laughing. Sitting alone, he felt so out of place. Later, he went to the bathroom and was sitting in one of the cubicles. He could hear some voices. He knew it was Kimberly, who was chatting with her colleague, Tom. "I can't believe that a mailman acts as if he's the boss. I've never met somebody so creepy. First Beth, now you," Tom spoke. "I really thought he would take the hint. He's older than my dad," Kimberly said. "Oh my God, he's so cringy," chuckled Kimberly, and both began to laugh. Robert heard Kimberly and Tom. Every word was like a knife going in his back. He thought she was the only nice one in the office, but now that had been proved wrong. Robert was just destroyed. He wondered why the bathroom had to be unisex. Consumed with rage, he took the next couple of weeks off due to sickness. But the only sickness Robert now had was for Kimberly. It was 2 months later when Robert returned to the office. He never talked with anyone the way he used to talk before. Now Robert was all serious. But as Valentine's Day was getting closer, all the ladies had begun to receive funny cards. Most of them thought it was a prank. But it was Kimberly's friend Beth who started to receive bizarre cards that would contain cut nails and hair. It freaked her out. and she reported it to her line manager. On Valentine's Day, Kimberly had no plans to see her boyfriend as he was out. She had called him. "How is everything?" she asked. "I'm missing you," replied Jacob. "Me too. When are you going to return?" "Soon, love." "Are you working late today?" "Yes," said Kimberly. After she was done talking to him, she continued to work till it was quite late. Suddenly the lights in the office went off. Kimberly was alone there in the dark and started to feel scared. She immediately called for security. "Hey, is anyone there? Security!" Spoke, but no answer came. "I think I should go," she sighed. Taking her laptop, she walked to the elevator. That's when she heard a sound that halted her movement. She looked back, but there was nobody. The moment Kimberly turned her head forward, something covered her face. It was a hand with a cloth that smelt like ammonia. She quickly passed out. When she regained consciousness, Kimberly found herself in Robert's mail office. He was standing near her. On his desk there was a variety of Valentine's cards, just like the ones he was sending. "Why are you ignoring me?" he asked seriously. He couldn't reply to him, as her hands were tied and her mouth was covered with duct tape. "Also, why are you making fun of me during Christmas?" He saw her eyes getting wide. "Oh yes, now you remember. I was in the bathroom. I heard everything." He took out a Stanley blade from his pocket as Kimberly tried her best to yell. He had a sinister smile as it came near her, slicing her face from left to right as the blood flowed out from her deep wound. She was in shock, and just then the duct tape over her mouth peeled back a little. That's when she screamed so loud that finally one of the security guards heard her. The action made him check the CCTV, and he immediately called the police. Kimberly tried her best to beg and stop Robert from cutting her again. Doors of Robert's mail office knocked. He was done. The doors then burst open, and the police shot Robert with a taser gun. His body convulsed as Kimberly's mind was unable to fathom the situation. She couldn't believe what had happened to her. Right away, she was rushed to hospital, first to intensive care and after to surgery. Her face was stitched. Her healing was full of psychological agony. It was months of therapy, and simple things like going outside had become very hard for her. Before, Kimberly wasn't self-conscious. Now, she was on the verge of losing her mind and her relationship. She wasn't beautiful anymore. That's how she felt. Beginning to question whether her boyfriend liked her for her beauty or soul gave her anxiety problems. She then wondered, how can I live my life? Jacob's calls were becoming less frequent, and Kimberly's life was becoming more hectic. Nothing but reminders everywhere. Her mother came to stay, and the year of agony was getting slowly better. Kimberly had turned a corner in her life, and she felt hopeful for the first time in ages. But then one day this happened. It wasn't a good conclusion. It was a letter from Robert, sent from his prison cell to her on Valentine's Day. She slumped on the kitchen floor, began to cry. He was still stalking her. The end.